Hello everyone. Today I am going to be talking about the Four Noble Truths. 2560 years ago, an Indian prince named Siddhartha attained enlightenment on the full moon dawn of the fourth month corresponding the lunar calendar. And he decided not to give any teaching because the place where he lived already had so many philosophical schools, and they asserted the existence of an independent self. So if Buddha gave any teachings, he would be the lone teacher to talk about selflessness, which would lead to contradictions and confusion. So he just remained amidst the forest meditating. Later he was requested to teach not only by humans but also by some celestial beings too. And to his first disciples he taught about the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths, which is a prominent subject in Buddhist society, are the truth of suffering or dukkha, the truth of cause of suffering or samudaya, the truth of cessation or nirodha, and truth of path that leads to cessation or magga. Initially, Buddha taught that suffering is the truth, cause of suffering is the truth, and cessation is the truth, and the path of cessation is the truth. With this, Buddha was pointing to each truth, showing us the reality. Then Buddha said that we must know suffering and we must renounce the cause of suffering. We must attain cessation and we must familiarize the path of cessation. With this, Buddha was pointing and showing us the path that leads to the understanding of the Four Truths. So we need to understand that the truth of cause and the truth of suffering are related as cause and effect within the cyclic existence or samsara, and as well as the truth of cessation and the truth of path are related as cause and effect beyond the cyclic existence. So first of all, the truth of suffering. There won't be liberation unless we realize what samsara is, and we won't realize what samsara is unless we realize what suffering is. We can only have a genuine intention to free ourselves until we face the real suffering. We know from the story of Prince Siddhartha that he became Buddha because he saw people suffering from illness and old age and death. Without encountering those suffering, I think he would have been ruling a kingdom as a king. Well, it's common we don't remember Dharma when we are living a comfortable and happy life. It's only when a person encounters mishap, then he becomes so devout, but only for a few days or weeks. But unlike us, Prince Siddhartha didn't turn back once he was on the path of seeking the truth. The Buddhist scriptures present to us description of numerous kinds of suffering. In fact, if there are 7 billion people on this planet, there could possibly be 7 billion different types of suffering. But all these can be enveloped in 3 different types of suffering. A suffering of pain, suffering of changes, suffering of conditioned phenomena. The first 2 are within the recognition of ordinary beings. Is the third one that many people are vexed. The truth of suffering doesn't necessarily mean a feeling of a regular feeling of physical, sensorial and emotional pain. Buddha was talking about suffering at the root stage. As a sentient being in cyclic existence, our present form, mind and mental factors are propelled by afflicted emotions and karma. So we always carry suffering in a dormant state, ready to manifest when the right conditions are met. Suppose we accidentally bang our head on a pillar. We scream and wail in pain, but not the pillar. After carrying a heavy load on our right shoulder, we move the load on our left shoulder. We feel relieved for an instant, but we never realize that we have created the condition for suffering to manifest on our left shoulder. This happens because the very form that we have today is nothing but a heap of suffering. So whether we are born in human realm, God realm, hell realm or animal realm, we will encounter these three sufferings. And the second one, the truth of cause of suffering. It's a fundamental Buddhist principle that everything that arises and ceases has a cause. So suffering doesn't arise out of the blue. It has its own causes, which are our own afflicted emotions and our deeds that are instigated by our afflicted emotions. Although our afflicted emotions are countless, but Buddhist scripture has pointed out 26 negative emotions, which is rooted in 6 primary emotions, which are attachment, anger, pride or arrogance, ignorance, and doubt, and perverted views. As said by Chantakriti and Madhyamaka Avatara, all those emotions arises from self-cherishing mind, which is ignorance. We usually have the notion that karma refers to negative deeds only. If a person kills someone, we say that he has accumulated karma. But if he does something good, we hardly say that he has accumulated karma. But the fact is that irrespective of virtues or non-virtues, as long as that deed yields a result within the cyclic existence, within the samsara, it's karma. So we think that we are doing something virtuous with devotion, but our devotions are always blended with self-cherishing mind. So it might result in some sort of pleasure in the higher realms, but it will make us migrate within the cyclic existence. And the third one, the truth of cessation. In the definitive teachings of Buddha, he never taught about the existence of heaven floating in space. This is not the cessation that we are after. We are after freedom from trap or entanglement laid by our selfish mind. An ancient Indian scholar, Udbata Siddhaswami, in his text Vishikistava, or superior verses in praise to the Buddha, said, certain non-Buddhist schools have asserted liberation to be a destination, whereas you, being realized, you have asserted which has destination is samsara. Therefore, it's within our mind that we experience liberation and samsara. If we see the world with selfish mind, it's samsara. Whereas if we see the world with pure wisdom, it's liberation. Nagarjuna said in Madhyama Karika, liberation is when afflicted emotions and karma ceases. Therefore, the cessation is a mental state when we are free from our own negative emotions and deeds that are prompted by those emotions. And the fourth one, the truth of path of cessation. If a suffering has a way in, it definitely has a way out. As ignorant or selfish minded being the primary source of suffering, we must think of an antidote to it. Since ignorance is the state of not knowing the reality, the always antidote is knowing the reality. We are after appearances, not the reality. We are never convinced of the reality of impermanence, although we express superficially. We are not convinced about the reality of suffering, thus we are so attached to ourselves. We are not convinced about the reality of interdependent nature of existence, thus we view them as something concrete and isolate. Therefore, we need to analyze and infer those realities with logical reasons through constant reflections. Once we actualize the wisdom that sees the reality, the ignorance ceases. Simultaneously, like the concurrent vanishing of darkness when we switch on the light. The teaching of Four Noble Truths is a complete and rudimentary teaching that discloses the truth of our existence. And through this teaching, we can ascertain the existence of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, which is necessary to acknowledge as a Buddhist. As we suffer from disease, we generate the intention to get rid of that illness at the root level, perhaps by taking pills that destroys the virus, or by renouncing certain way of living that causes the illness. Through this, we are certain that there is someone who is ill and someone who is going under medication or treatment, and someone who is completely cured from the illness. And we also know that there are medicine that cures. Similarly, we ought to know that there are sentient beings that are suffering in the cyclic existence. And there is someone who is in the process of getting rid of the cause of suffering called Sangha. And there is someone who is completely free from suffering of samsara called Buddha. And there is a way to get rid of that causes of suffering called Dharma. The teachings of Four Noble Truths is not a mere history to be remembered. Its relevancy is not confined by the limitation of time. So what I have just spoken is just a drop of water from the vast ocean, as all entire beings are identical in having the wish to get rid of the suffering. The truth revealed by Buddha relates to all beings irrespective of their forms. Therefore, let us use our human intellect to examine the impact of our selfish outlook so that we can live a life with less suffering in a harmonious community and peaceful world. Thank you and Tashdale.